Alright, so I'm going to be showing how to open up and disassemble this Dell Inspiron 13 5368 2-in-1 laptop or notebook PC. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is remove all the screws from the bottom. What did I do with my screwdriver? Oh, he was using it. Let me get that real quick. I'll be back. Alright, I'm back. So we're going to use a PH1 or JS1 screwdriver to remove all the screws from the bottom. You want to keep all the screws in order because they can be different size, shape, and lengths. Alright, I accidentally forgot I was working on a desktop earlier, so it was a PH2 in there, but make sure to use a PH1 or JS1 screwdriver. Alright, we'll remove the screws. You want to keep them in order because they can be different size, shape, and length. The way I do that, flat sit down like that on my desk in the pattern, I remove them. So you'll see like 4 like that, 3 like that, and then just those 2. So I put them like that on my desk. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove them. The last 2 over here might actually stay attached to the cover, but we'll see once we get to them. Alright. So we're going to be upgrading the hard drive to an SSD and the RAM capacity to 16 gigs. Alright. The computer just finished that I was working on. Alright, so basically we're going to upgrade those 2 things. If this video helps you out, make sure to like, subscribe, share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade and repair their devices as well. If it helps you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. Sorry, I got a bunch of messages I had to check. Okay, anyways, once we got all the screws out, as you can see, those screws actually came out as well, so they didn't stay in. We're gonna flip it over and then we can get in this gap here, right here. Okay, so what I do is I use that to pull it up, you can see, and then it helps to kind of like pull the cover in so it goes like this. That way it's like shorter and the clips disengage. Okay, so just like this, and you might have to wiggle it a little. If you can't get a side out, you might have to slide a pry tool or a fingernail in there and just go along, and there we go. Once we get all of that, then we kind of wiggle, 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 and there we go. All right, so we got that out. Okay, all right, so let's see, we got this, and we got there. You can see we're only using 1 stick of RAM. And we don't really need to disconnect the battery because we're only changing the SSD and the hard drive to an SSD and the RAM. So we don't really need to worry about that. Okay, so just make sure that the computer's off. If you want to be sure or extra safe, we can go ahead and actually disconnect the battery just to make sure the computer is off. I did already clone the hard drive to an SSD, but to remove the battery, I just get my fingernails in this little area and kind of just try and wiggle this connector. A lot of times this kind of connector is a little tough to remove, so you can get a little tool that can fit in this little area and use that, to try and pull that out. Okay, so we disconnected the battery. If you're wondering, the battery model number is right here, WDX0R. Alright, let's go ahead and zoom out again. I'm just going to quickly go over what's in here, but we are going to be upgrading the hard drive to an SSD and the RAM. CPU is soldered to the motherboard underneath the heatsink there. And yeah, that can't really be upgraded unless you're basically replacing the motherboard, or if you have special tools to be able to do that kind of thing, but most likely if you have to ask, then you aren't going to be able to do that. Alright, there's 4 screws holding the hard drive to this caddy, so we're gonna be switching this over to an SSD. Alright, so we cloned what was on here already to a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive SSD. And yeah, they didn't have much stored. This laptop actually is only 500 gigs. So we're basically just going to another 500 gig drive. So take note of which way the connector is facing, because we have to put this exactly the same way. You can see just like that and just like that. Okay, so we're gonna line this back up. Okay, and then I'm gonna get the SSD in there. That in, and we'll just get these back. I believe these SSDs are 7mm thick. This hard drive is a thin one. In the past, they used to also have, I think, 9.5mm thick drives. I think they stopped using those. Unless you get like super large capacity like spinning drives, then they even have like thicker ones too sometimes. But yeah, all right. Anyways, we're gonna just get these 4 screws back in. Pretty simple, straightforward. Okay, once we got all of that, we're going to reconnect this piece here, just get that lined up. and push that into place. All right, and then we'll get this in, line that up, and we'll get these 2 screws back in. All right, not very difficult in terms of replacing. Not the easiest, but nothing crazy. All right. The hard drive connector is removable from the motherboard. If you wanted, you can actually pull this cable up to pop it out. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm only going to show because I don't want to do additional steps that could cause damage to other components. You got the power button and volume buttons here that connect to this board up here. Okay. BIOS, CMOS, RTC, real-time clock, battery here. So if you needed to have access to that. SD card slot, USB port are up here on this separate board that connects with this cable. This cable has a metal latch that you can flip up, and then once you flip it up, you can slide the connector back this way to get it out. All right, same thing on the motherboard end. Flip that latch, and then you can pull that back. Fan connectors here, same thing. There's 2 screws holding the fan in place. Wireless card is here. There's a metal bracket holding the, or keeping the antennas from coming out. If you pull out the antennas, you go from the tail. Don't try and pry up from the little gold connectors. Okay, and if you need the wireless card information, I'll go close up. You can see there's, I don't know if there's a model number somewhere here, but yeah. All right, then you got the LCD LVDS connector. If you're gonna mess with these, make sure after disconnecting the battery, open up the laptop, press and hold the power button for at least 15 seconds, and then you can go ahead and disconnect this. I believe this is the LCD LVDS connector, and this is probably the digitizer touchscreen connector, possibly webcam and microphone stuff. You got the DC jack charge port connector here to remove this. There's a screw holding the DC jack in place, but you also have to remove the hinges and lift it up slightly. The way I get these out is usually I'll open the laptop slightly and then undo the screws, so that way when I close the laptop, it will pop the hinge up. But if you do that, you do have to also disconnect these because it's gonna end up pulling on these cables. All right. Speaker connector here. All right, one connector runs along from this speaker down here all the way to the other speaker. No screws are holding them in, just little rubber things, so you can actually pull the speakers out. Oops, I didn't mean to actually pop it out. So you can actually pull the speakers out without unscrewing anything. Okay, and I think that's about it. So let's go ahead now and upgrade the RAM. So RAM is pretty straightforward. We're just gonna go here, pop the 2 things to the side. All right, I think this used an awkward speed, PC4 2133P. We are putting PC4 2666V instead. So let's go ahead and pop this open so it comes packaged like this. I'm gonna just run my fingernail in here to kind of slit that in half, and we'll leave the other side intact, but we just need that so we can kind of open this up just like that. All right, you can see PC4 or GDR4 2666. All right, and we're gonna now just pop the RAM out of this container. Be careful with this. You wanna make sure, of course, that you're grounded. If you were, well, I mean, if you're working on the computer, you would have already known, or you should have hopefully already known to do that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get the RAM in. I believe I tested with this kind of speed RAM already and matched with the other RAM, but usually you wanna have matching sticks of RAM. You don't wanna mix match, all right? And so, should work just fine. Make sure that you pull the stick of RAM in all the way. You do have to do it while it's up at an angle. Sometimes I just wiggle it up and down like this while I'm pulling it into place, and then you can push it down just like that. And there we go. All right, next thing we're gonna do, just reconnect the battery connector. Pretty straightforward, right? Make sure it's lined up. Don't try and pull it in crooked. So make sure it's going in straight like that, and then go both sides at the same time. I just pinch with my fingers like this and pull it in. There we go. Okay, so now that we got all the components swapped out, let's actually go ahead and open this thing up and see if it powers up properly. All right, sometimes the SSD isn't happy after the initial swap, so we might have to change something in the BIOS. Let's see what happens. All right, so right now the thing went on and then back off. I don't know if it's going to turn itself back on again. Sometimes it'll power cycle itself a few times. Oh, it did. Okay. Amount of system memory has changed, of course, because we put now 16 gigs instead of the 4 it used to have. So we're going to continue here. Oh, touchscreen didn't work. We're going to do it this way. Continue. Okay, and we'll see if it just boots normally or if we're gonna have to do some special stuff. I might have to hold this out of the way because it might show username information and things like that. Yeah, it's booting already. So let me hold this out of the way and we'll wait for it to boot up. I'll at least let you see that the color comes on the screen so you can see that it's working. So I'll show this corner. I'm probably gonna have to restart the computer one time. It's gonna take a little while for it to boot this first time. I don't know if you can still see the dots. Oh, okay, it stopped already. But usually the first time it takes a while to boot because it's creating a page file on the SSD or the new hard drive, on the hard drive or SSD, depending if you upgraded it or not. So keep that in mind. If you were low on space before, if you put more RAM, it'll create a much larger page file, and then that can cause your computer to have problems. So keep that in mind. If you're upgrading your RAM, make sure you have enough space. I'm going to restart the computer right now. It looks like it booted up and we should be fine. So now all that's left to do is to put the bottom cover back on. Also, the generic model number is right here, DELL Inspiron 13 5000 series. Okay, so that might help some people. It's still restarting. Right, let's see, it's taking a little while. Let's see if after it finishes restarting and boots up, if it'll run faster. I just noticed it's an Intel Core i3, so that's partially what's making it slower. But shouldn't really be too big of a deal. Okay. Okay, set aside the new RAM or the old RAM and hard drive for the customer. All right, it's restarting. The screen right now is just showing black, but hopefully it will start up soon. No mouse. Oh, there we go. Okay, mouse cursor and everything. There we go. Okay, so it booted up quite a bit faster. We're going to shut it down now, and then basically that's pretty much it. We'll put the bottom cover on, and that's all there is to it. So hopefully this video helped you guys out. Again, if it did, make sure to like, subscribe, share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade and repair their devices as well. If it helped you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. Other than that, that's pretty much it. We got a thumbnail here. Okay, we're going to now just get this cover, get it back on. If you want, you can do it kind of the same way where you get this side in first. Okay, it kind of, usually it will help. You might have to kind of tilt it up like this to get those clips back in, and you can also pull the cover and move it around. Right, and we're going to just work our way back over here. Click everything back in, click everything back in. There we go. Now we'll flip this over. All right, and there we go. All right, and now we just got to get all these screws back in. That's pretty much all there is to it. We'll get the 4 back up here, 3 down here, and then these 2 down there. All right, so hopefully this video helped you guys out. Thanks for watching. I'm just gonna get all these back in. Again, I probably said that like several times already now. Okay. Then we got the last one here. There we go. And that's pretty much it. We're good to go. All right, let's drop this. Bye.